Good evening and welcome to a new edition of Urban Sentinel Live. I'm your host, Reggie Kearney. I'm the publisher of Urban Sentinel Magazine, and I want to welcome you to another Tuesday night of a live show of Urban Sentinel Live. Hope everyone's doing well. But before we get started, I just want to remind everybody again, we've got an election coming up, and people, excuse me, people, we got to go out and vote. You got to tell all your family and friends to get out and vote, okay? Make sure to get registered because in most states you have, including the District of Columbia, you have up to October the 15th. So please get out, get registered, and vote, okay? This is one of the elections of the century that we need to go out and vote because if we don't, this country is going to be jacked up. Okay, so much for that. Tonight, I have my co-host again with us tonight on this Tuesday night, Miss Keisha Reefer. She's got a fine gentleman from Dominica, and I'm going to bring her on, and she's going to pick up the show, and we're going to get started on Tuesday night for Urban Sentinel Live. Good evening, Keisha. How you doing this evening?
Good evening. I'm doing fine. Thank you.
Okay.
It's nice to be here today.
Well, good. Glad to have you. It's in your hands.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Keisha Reefer Esprit. I'm the host tonight of the Urban Sentinel Live TV show. To be featured is Sobers Esprit, a native of the Commonwealth of Dominica. The visionary is a development specialist who has distinguished himself both at the national and regional levels. He is presently an independent consultant in the areas of tourism, development, creative industries, and media and communications. He served as a technical specialist, creative industries, while employed with the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, which is OECS, Commission's Competitive Business Unit, CBU. Sobers Esprit was a founding director and one of the leading figures involved in the establishment of the Dominica Festivals Commission, which created the Dominica World Creole Music Festival. He also has been very involved in the management of Dominica's festival tourism program, including the World Creole Music Festival, Mass Dominique, Carnival, and Jazz and Creole. Before his engagement with the OECS Commission, the Trailblazer has worked at the National Development Corporation in Tourism Division. He served as the Public Relations and Tourism Awareness Officer, then as Deputy Director of Tourism, and finally Director of Tourism in Agriculture area. He was seconded to the EU-funded Dominica Ecotourism Development Program as technical expert for community tourism, and he served as well as a tourism technical specialist for the EU-funded SFA Tourism Development Program in the Commonwealth of Dominica. He's a founding member of the Movement for Cultural Awareness, Dominica's first and to date only cultural development agency, which pioneered and led in the area of popular theater and community animation for grassroots development. He was the chairman and later program coordinator of the ECPTO, which is the Eastern Caribbean Popular Theater Organization. The scholar holds a Master's of Arts degree in Rural Social Development from the University of Reading, United Kingdom, which is in the United Kingdom. He also studied journalism at the University of Havana in Cuba and public relations at the Caribbean Institute of Mass Communication, also known as CARIMAC, at Mona, Jamaica. With all his contributions and experiences, we are assured that this profession is in good hands with one of our esteemed sons of the soil. I count it a privilege to interview one of the country's greatest visionaries who is resolute of service of the Commonwealth of Dominica. Good evening, Sobers Esprit. How are you doing?
Great. I didn't know all that about me, I'm really honored to be here with you.
Yes.
Feel a bit humbled by all of those accolades and
Yes.
yeah, it's really great to be here with you this evening. I've read so much about your program, seen some of it as well. So it's an honor to be here tonight.
Yes.
And I hope I can share as much as I can with you. and your
Yes.
your your audience.
Yes. Thank you very much. It is a pleasure and an honor to have you on the show. Just to be in your presence and have you taken the time to come to the show means a lot to us. So I will get started because we don't have much time and we have a lot of titles going on and a lot of letters and
Let's make it simple. Let's make it simple.
acronyms.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's keep it
So
simple.
let's get straight to it. Just give us a brief synopsis about yourself in the areas of the youth culture and their development and what inspired or propelled you to take this path.
Oh, yeah. So I grew up in the 70s. All right. I was a child of the 70s.
Okay.
And my generation was compelled by the situation at that time to be engaged. We were very engaged at the time. And in those days, you had to do everything. You had to be a sports person, so we played cricket. You had to be a youth
Mhm.
leader, so we were involved in youth group. We had to be Boy Scouts, and we had to be in Scouts,
Yes.
and we were involved in public education. We mobilized communities around action, the various community-based action. But I think importantly, though, our generation recognized that we were the pivotal moment in the history of our country, and our generation had to take a lead, in trying to usher us into this new period. It was a period of heightened consciousness and awareness about who we were, and who we are still.
Mhm.
Because, as you know, the pre-independence period was an important period for us in the Caribbean, not least because the Caribbean, as most of us would know, we were seen as, in some ways, an underdeveloped part of the world, but in many ways, we were also seen as a rich, engaging, dynamic part of the world, because we, even in those days, we gave a lot to the world. But it was about trying to build a new society, a new Caribbean reality, a new Dominican society. And so we were, I would say, inspired by persons who came before us. So we walked on the shoulders of the Marcus Garveys. We walked on the shoulders of people like Bob Marley, and in our own context, Dominica,
Mhm.
people before us like Alwyn Bully, who was a playwright and cultural icon, people like Gordon Henderson, and many others, but also political figures like Edward
Yes.
Oliver LeBlanc, Rosie Douglas, his brother Michael Douglas, and Dr. Bill Revere, and others who really inspired my generation to action. And so it was an easy fit for us to go out there and to get involved. So I was involved in youth work, I was involved in sports, I was involved in, almost anything that was there to be done in the community. We had to do it. But I think importantly too, we recognize the value of education. We saw education as pivotal for us as children of the poor and the working class. And so we took pride in trying to educate ourselves to the next level. Because prior to the 70s, very few Dominicans went to university. So that was also very important for us. So we went through the high school system and then later on to university through different means. So some of us went to Cuba, some people went to University of the West Indies, some went to the UK, and so on. But education was also seen as critical for us. But I think most importantly, it was about self-empowerment. It is about building community. It is about trying to ensure that we give voice to those who didn't have voice at that time. So that is how I got involved in media and communication. So I wrote a lot. I was involved in radio, youth radio in those days, and so all of that, you put all of that together, that was my life. And then theater, I of course, how could I say, miss that? We were involved in theater in the 70s and early 80s, and as you read out, that led us to setting up a movement in popular theater using drama to
Yes.
mobilize communities to solve problems, very intractable problems of violence, problems of youth unemployment, of course, social problems like AIDS, problems of juvenile delinquency, and so on. But it's also about working with grassroots organization, working with women, working with farmers, and so on. So yeah, so it was a full life. We
Yes.
we did everything.
Yes. Thank you so much. And that resonates well with me. Education is a big thing for all of us in the Caribbean. on both sides of the family. It's all about education. The grandparents is sending you, that's the schooling you get. They talk about going to school, get an education, and do well for yourself. So definitely, I can agree with you on that. In regards to focus here, what the main objectives, explain to the listeners what are your main areas of focus. I know about the youth, the grassroots, and tourism development, the creative industries, the NGO. Just tell us a little bit about that and the cross-sectional work in relation to disaster risk management in agriculture, and what is the main focus.
Okay, so I think I described my life growing up as a youngster, involved in youth groups and youth organization, and then leading, getting away from having graduated from high school, getting into the real world of work. I first worked with the National Youth Council, the Dominican National Youth Council, as the officer in charge there. And that gave me a sort of a grounding, a point of reference for what was to come later on. Okay. It propelled me into new areas of development that I probably wouldn't have envisaged. So later on, I went back, as you rightly pointed out, I went to university in Havana, and then later on to university in the United Kingdom, where I studied development studies, rural social development. When I got back from university, my area of work was in tourism. Never dreamt that I would work in tourism. It wasn't an area that I ever thought about. But again, important moments, important critical moments in our development, the region and the world. I went to university in 1991 and came back in 1993. However, at that time, there was this huge push to look at sustainable tourism, to look at ecotourism. Because as you know, prior to the 1990s, tourism in the Caribbean was seen largely as sun, sea, and sun. And then there's another S, that some people talk about in the tourism lexicon in the Caribbean. And so countries like Dominica was seen as not suitable for tourism development. So we were largely agrarian. We were a society dependent on agriculture. And so tourism was seen as something that we couldn't develop. Tourism was seen as only for Barbados or Antigua or Jamaica, the Bahamas, flatter land, white sand beaches, and so on. But the new thinking, the new dynamics of the 1990s, with the advent of the whole notion of sustainable development. Don't forget, in 1992, we had the Rio Summit, the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and this whole thrust on sustainable development. And it was seen as, ecotourism was seen as an important element of a growing tourism globally. So more and more people, more and more visitors were looking for new kinds of destination, unspoiled, pristine ecosystems and so on. And so Dominica fit in that bill. So I got back into, in fact, what got me into tourism is because my dissertation at the university focused on ecotourism development. And it became almost a seminal piece of work because nobody had done anything about ecotourism in the Caribbean or that I knew of. And so when I got back to Dominica, it was easy to get a job working in tourism. So I was thrust right into the heart of tourism development, in a Dominica that was building its tourism economy. So the 1990s was an important period for Dominica in terms of growing its tourism. And so I became very involved in that. So first, I had a role to play in terms of mobilizing the community around tourism. What's the value of tourism? Promoting the whole concept of ecotourism, that is a tourism that is based on the ecology, that is based on pristine beauty, that is based on greenness. And so we were given the task to go out around the country and mobilize communities. Tourism is everybody's business. That was the motto. And I was one of the lead in terms of trying to bring that message across. So I got involved in tourism, and I found myself, because I wasn't a tourism specialist, Matthew, I did a dissertation, I did a research work on tourism, but I became integral to the development process of tourism in the 1990s and found myself doing various things. So I was involved in tourism education, I was involved in community-based tourism, I was involved in tourism marketing at the time, And we were also involved in film, in promoting Dominica as a film location. So all of those things put together, that was my entry into tourism. I spent 14, 15 years doing that kind of work in tourism. And I ended up being director of tourism. But I think for me, most importantly, is that it helped to give me a better grounding of development work in Dominica, particularly at the public sector level. Because prior to 1993, well, except for a short period, working as a primary school teacher, I'd never worked in the public sector. So I understand the nuances of the public service bureaucracy. I understood also the notion of public-private partnership that's critical to the development of any new nation, but particularly small nations like ours. It is important for us to have partnerships, collaboration, so synergies between the public sector and the private sector, and of course, community-based organizations, civil society was important. So I began to understand that in a broader way because I was really involved in it. And
Yes.
so if I found myself doing all kinds of things, helping to build a festival tourism
Yes.
segment for Dominica. We created Dominica Festivals Commission in the late 1990s that started the World Creole Music Festival, which is today one of the biggest festivals in the Caribbean. And
Yes.
we have also our carnival. Dominica Carnival is one of the oldest carnivals in the Caribbean,
Yes.
post-emancipation carnival. And recently we started the Jazz and Creole Festival. So yes, so I got involved in all these things. So here you saw really a coming together of all various disciplines in development. So it wasn't just tourism. It was tourism. It was agriculture, because we also we were involved in promoting agro-based tourism, trying to get people in the rural communities to look at how they can supplement and complement their revenues by doing things on the farms to attract visitors. So that was part of the thinking as well. So we brought agriculture to tourism, we brought entertainment and festivals to tourism, we brought film and media to tourism, we brought communities to tourism. So that is the cross-cutting things I'm talking about.
Yes.
And in sports later on, cricket, got involved in promoting Dominica as a cricket venue, because by 2007, Dominica had built its own national stadium and we could host international cricket games. So all of those things came together, and I found myself playing a part in all of this.
Yes, thank you so much. And I'm smiling because you actually hit the nail on this head. I was going to initiate the question, but you already gave me the answer. You expressed it in relation to tourism. I wanted to speak about that, but you gave the answer. I was saying, contrary to popular belief, everyone thinks of tourism as just beautiful beaches and sand, but I know that Dominica's niche is ecotourism. So I wanted you to elaborate on it, but you give me the perfect answer, along with elaborating about the different types of tourism. I wish if more countries would focus on more than just entertainment and fashion, because there's so much more. There's sports, there's agriculture, there's film and media, everything that you have mentioned. And that is a really great visionary, which you are, and you have contributed astronomically to Dominica. So we appreciate you for
and understand too that this generation of tourism managers and tourism leaders have taken this notion of ecotourism to a step higher. So Dominica is seen more as an adventure destination. So we promote various pillars of the tourism industry. So the various experiences you can get in when you come to Dominica as a visitor. So there are, I think, 7 pillars, and so there are so many things you can enjoy and experience in this beautiful island, Dominica. So we have adventure, as they say, we have heritage, we have health and wellness, we have romance. We have festivals, as I said earlier. Kalinago, and closely aligned to our heritage. So whale watching and diving also as part of the marine resources or the marine assets that we have. So there's so many things you can really experience and enjoy in this beautiful island of Dominica. Small but compact. We have a great deal to give to the world, and so. The idea now is to take Dominica's tourism to another level. And what is happening is that since 2007, the government of Dominica created a standalone tourism entity called Discover Dominica Authority, and they have resourced it and provided the kind of leadership that would really help to promote Dominica globally as a destination that is different from most, like any other. Like no other country can compare
Yes,
to
it's
this beautiful
different. It's
gem.
unique.
It's unique, you know.
Yes.
So that
It's
is
unique, it's
that is a
beautiful. Never
mantra.
seen
That is
anything
a
like it.
mantra. Yes.
Yes. But thank you. I just want to spend a few seconds in relation to the film industry. You all have had the Pirates of the Caribbean was filmed there, wasn't it?
Yes. In fact, I had the
Yes.
good fortune, but also it was a challenge having worked on
Okay.
that project. I was at the time still involved in tourism when the Pirates of the Caribbean came to Dominica, and that brought great accolades to Dominica. It
Yes.
was indeed a massive undertaking, and it the ripple effect in terms of the economic value, giving the island, you know, a new kind of a brand, a new image as a film location,
Yeah.
important film location. But I think more importantly is the economic impact it created on the island, because we're talking about millions of dollars spent during the filming process. So farmers benefited, landowners benefited. We had helpers, location scouts, and a whole range of other service providers get involved and participated in this whole program to bring the film here in the first place, but also during the filming itself. And so that was for us a big plus in promoting Dominica again as an important destination, but also a destination for film as well in Dominica. But
Yes.
I must hasten to say though, as somebody involved in working in creatives, our focus is also about creating content, local content. So we are also interested, whilst we want to bring international film crews to Dominica on location, but we also want to develop our own film industry, our indigenous film industry. In fact, I am tonight, just before I joined you guys, we are running a film lab. It's a regional film lab, and we have
Yes.
48 filmmakers from around the region participating in that. And the whole idea is to build capacity of Caribbean filmmakers to get quality films to the global film marketplace.
Okay.
And there are two Dominicans involved in that. I'm so proud of them.
Okay. Well, yes, congratulations to everyone. And of course, Commonwealth of Dominica, keep doing your best and doing your thing. Okay, there are many titles that you have held and acronyms of association. I know that for some people who may have read the flyer, some people did say they think it was an intricate conversation that we will have, because some people get a little paralyzed with fear when they see words and acronyms that are big. That's why I made sure I mention and explain the titles and everything. So would you just briefly, in a nutshell, just tell us what was your experience? How was this journey been for you, having these titles and working with all these different organizations?
Well, I was never, and I am never somebody that concerned about titles.
Yeah.
I'm to me, I came in this world with a purpose, and I'm driven by that, and I'm trying to
Yeah.
get as much done whilst I'm here. So for me, it is about delivering. It's about making sure that I make a big contribution to this, this space that I'm part of. And for me, it is about Dominica. It's about the Caribbean, but it's also about the global community as well. So yeah, it has been for me a tremendous journey. From a small village in a little island, in a small part of the world, and so I feel a sense of satisfaction for what we have been able to do. However, we recognize that there's still a lot of work still to be done, and so my preoccupation is about continuing to do as much as we can to get the work done, to mobilize, to inspire young people, and to ensure that we remain at the forefront in everything that we do. So whether it's in tourism, whether it's in film development, whether it is in music and the arts, that we should stand out and stand proud. So my thing is to raise my hands always to say, I want to play a part. I want to be part of what is going on.
Yes, thank you. And you will always be successful because you are modest, and you know that's actually in the Bible. God is no respecter of persons. But in relation to titles, as in your accomplishments, your accolades, you have done very well. I am really impressed because I have had various dialogues with you and I didn't know all of this about you. I have seen you on DBS radio and you're well
Mhm.
accomplished, but you're very humble, which is a very great attribute to have. So,
It's
that
interesting.
is a
It's
great role
interesting.
model.
It's interesting to say about DBS because DBS was for me a place I grew up. I grew up in the VS from
Okay.
from time I was about 16, 17. We did youth radio. We ran a radio program every Saturday morning called Motion. And so from
Okay.
those days, those early days, I spent a lot of hours at that radio station, just listening to the guys, watching them in action. And hey,
Yeah.
I think that DBS has been a model in terms of what a national broadcaster should be. They still
Yes.
a lot I feel they can still do. However, over the last 50 years, they've been tremendous in terms of trying to get the word out there, trying to promote Dominica's art and culture. And they've been really been, tremendous in helping to build a generation or generations of media personnel in Dominica and across the Caribbean.
Yes. Thank you. And you did study journalism. You have that background
Yeah.
and you are an avid reader. You're a writer. You've written several books, haven't you?
Well, not books, but I have contributed to various publications. I have been a major
Okay.
contributor. I'm a prolific
Okay.
writer of, I should say, of current events. I do a lot of journalistic work. I do a lot of speech writing.
Okay.
So that has been my forte. I in my
Yeah.
in my in my earlier days, I used to write poetry.
Mm-hmm.
So that you can count in terms of my writing credentials.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
And I have seen photos of you doing some speeches. I guess they were motivational speaking or things of that sort in with the University of the West Indies, DBS, and some other places. Do you wish to briefly elaborate on that?
Yeah, and what is happening is, I suppose as you get older and more mature, you've been called upon to speak on issues of the times. So, particularly at DBS, I've had a very close association with DBS. So I have been involved in a lot of their outside, broadcast work, but also when they do public events. So during Independence Time, for example, they would have various events, whether it's being the World Queer Music Festival or discussing various issues related to independence. So I got invited. I normally get invited to speak on some of those issues. So yeah, I have been called upon in a lot of forums to be a panelist, to be moderator, and all of those things. So
Yes.
that has been what has been going on for me particularly in the last few years.
Okay. Well, thank you. And we all know that with wisdom comes experience. Experience comes wisdom. And you
Mm.
mentioned about maturity, but definitely you were in a teaching field and also speaking. Those two you are, but those are special callings. Everyone's occupation or job, I mean, a job and an occupation are actually two different career. And, people think they're basically the same, but they're not. But teaching and speaking, there are special callings, and it's really a gift. It's a God-given gift to be a motivational speaker. You have to touch the inner soul of people.
Yeah,
So that is not
yeah,
everybody says they're a speaker, but everyone doesn't deliver the same. So definitely those are special callings, being a teacher, educator, or being in the speaking field. So
definitely. I mean, the teaching thing, I love to mentor, to coach. So these days, I don't think these days, I've been doing it for a long time. I've been working with a lot of university students, for example,
yes.
mentoring, doing a lot of mentoring, particularly students in social sciences or humanities. So working with students in helping, in assisting them, particularly writing dissertations, doing theses and so on. So that's been, something I've been doing over many years. But the teaching part is, I prefer just to go to a classroom, deliver the lecture, and go on. I
Thank you.
hate
I
I
definitely
hate
believe
judging or correcting papers. So
Thank you.
I never took on the teaching role for any length of time. So go there for 3 months, do an exercise, and move on.
Thank you. I think we have a lot in common, Sobers Esprit, because that's how I work too. I am in the educational field, but I don't see myself teaching in a classroom consistently for a whole 6 months, and I haven't experienced that recently. I rather just stick to doing lectures and going in and doing intervention specialist work. But to sit all day and teach, I don't think that's really my thing. You know, I mean, you
No,
have the ability to, but everybody's not the
yes.
same.
Well,
Yes.
I do things like workshops, short
Yes.
workshops. You know, so a 3 hour workshop, you go there to do presentation and get the participants engaged and involved. You know, ask questions, get them to do work groups and produce reports and those kinds of things. That is good for me, and that is what we used to do in popular theater. We spend a lot of times going into communities, engaging the communities on the issues, putting them together in groups, getting them to come up with the issues. So they have to determine what the issues are, then to decide why they raise those as critical issues for them, and then try to come up with actions that can solve those problems. So things like that, this is what I prefer to do rather than to be in a classroom teaching.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I want to ask you about your services. I don't think we got too deep into that as yet. I'm watching the time, but if you wish to, would you like to share a particular website or contact in case listeners or companies may want to use your services? Of course, we can go back and speak briefly about your services, but is that you want to notify us of those services you offer?
Well, I currently I don't have any website or my personal website at this time, but but I am engaged more in the field of creative industries these days. So I spend a lot of my professional life, facilitating work in the area of the creative economy. Providing support in the subsectors like fashion and design, like music, film development, visual arts. So those areas, these are the areas that are really of concern to me, because I think that we have a unique opportunity in the Caribbean to be special and to give to the world much more than we think we are giving to the world. I think we can be much more. What we need is organization. What we need is to come together more and more to understand that we can together produce and become, world leaders in the arts and culture. The Caribbean is well known for as an area, as a region, for its great music in particular, but also visual arts, fashion and design. We are growing, we are building. Film, we are challenging the film sector. I think for the most part, the reason why I think we are not able to do as much in those other areas apart from the music sector, because in music, I think we have some comparative advantage or competitive advantage. We need to invest more in those areas. I think I need to highlight that the Caribbean region must invest more in its creatives. We are not investing as much as we should be. And I'm talking about investing in education and training. I'm talking about investing in funding to help producers to create goods and services that have world-class levels. I'm talking about investing in spaces to allow us to be able to rehearse and to produce works. I am talking about investing in research and development so that our creators can have access to the information, the knowledge that they require. I am talking about research, investing in opportunities for us to explore and opportunities for collaboration with creators globally. So there's a lot of work that we need to do to make our region creative sector much more competitive. We are not doing as much as we should, and it's unfortunate because we could be earning so much more from that sector if only we put a small amount into investing in those areas.
Yes, thank you very much. I hope the rest of the Caribbean hears that, because definitely I think these conversations and interviews can sometimes fall on dead ears, or it's like you beating a horse and they don't fully get it, or they don't want to probably fully explore or spend the funds in it. But definitely tourism is a big area and everything you mentioned is needed. Those are like, you call it the depths, are getting into the nitty gritty of it. You need to start from the roots to
Well,
grow.
I think what we need to understand in the we are living in the 21st century, yeah,
Yes.
and what we are witnessing is that the global economy has shifted a great deal. We the global economy was mostly on agriculture and production in manufacturing of goods, and so these are still very important. So agriculture is still a pivotal part of our regional economy. We have to invest more. We have to do more in agriculture. We have to do more in manufacturing, definitely. But the new economy is moving more towards knowledge, it's more towards information. And that is
Technology.
where technology, that's where we have
Technology.
to put
Yeah.
our focus on. So we
Yes.
have to look at investment in those areas. We have to look at empowering girls and boys in education, STEM education, so that we have the best scientists, we have the best engineers, and we have the best technology experts in and to take advantage of opportunities that are coming up in the global marketplace. So we have to look at the dynamics of the global economy, and that I think we're not doing fast enough. Some countries are doing it, some people are doing it, but I think as a whole, the Caribbean must move more in that direction. We have to shift as we see the economies of the globe of the world shifting in those directions. But focus on some of the traditional sectors. Agriculture will always be critical for Dominica and many of and I would say in the Caribbean for food security, for rural development and rural upliftment. It is also important for regional food security as well. But we have to recognize that what is going to propel us into the next 2 or 3 decades going to be the new areas of for economic transformation. It is knowledge, it is experience. So that's why tourism is important. That's why culture and the arts is important. That is why digital technology is critical for us. But it won't happen by magic. We can expect it's going to happen overnight or when we just get up. We have to invest in it. We have to make the sacrifice. We have to build systems. We have to develop processes to ensure that we become more globally competitive in those areas.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. In relation to agriculture and the business, you can educate me more on that, but it seems as though it is slowly not as high as it used to be back in probably in the 70s, 80s. I think that agriculture was probably bigger there with people who had estates and
Yeah.
agriculture and ground. I look as though now with the farmers and with all the different hurricanes occurring, it's like kind of shaky. So will you briefly speak on that?
Yeah, it is a contentious conversation. It can be, in
Okay.
many ways, but there are
Okay.
a few factors that are responsible for that. One has to do with the fact that we have seen, or particularly for us in the Windward Islands, we used to
Hmm.
have preferential treatment on the European market for certain crops like bananas and so on. We have lost most of that. It means, therefore, that for us to compete in the global marketplace, we have to become much more competitive. So we have to do things better. So that's a critical part of the struggle. The second part is what we're seeing is that a new generation of Caribbean people, of Caribbean youth, do not want to be in agriculture, particularly what they saw their grandparents did or their great grandparents did. So they want to see agriculture as different. The question is, can we afford that? And if so, can we move quickly enough to ensure that we get our young people to see the value of staying on the farm, staying in agriculture? So there's been a number of initiatives in the region around agricultural redevelopment. So the Jack Deo initiative was one of them that was started about for many years. So Guyana has been a leader in this whole area of trying to revive agriculture in the region. You see every year there's the month is a month of agriculture, they call it, or a week of agriculture in some parts of the Caribbean, just because they recognize the value of agriculture and the need for us to really focus on building an agricultural economy. The other
Yes.
thing
Thank
is
you.
that the other thing is that the competition for agricultural commodities is fierce. So the market is small, and it means that for us to remain vibrant, for us to remain useful in that market, we have to be top quality. We have to produce quality goods. But I think for us in the Caribbean, the main focus should be on regional food security to ensure that we can, in fact, cut back on the huge amount that we import, among the food that we import into the region. And so that's why the Guyana initiative, Guyana and Barbados, I know Barbados has been very much involved in that whole process. So there are a few things that we have to do for agriculture to remain a key part of the regional economy and for Dominica, our national economy. But again, it has to be investment. It has to be about a shift of mind in the way we think about agriculture. So all of those things put together, because it won't happen like it was 50 years ago. 50 years ago, we had preferential treatment. Our former colonial powers gave us certain kinds of support in the marketplace, which we were able to utilize. Today, we do not have that kind of support. We have to become much more competitive. We have to become world-class in agriculture. But there are still opportunities in the agricultural value chain for us. In terms of the niche market, there are certain products that we can grow in the Caribbean that can be high yield. And we have the tourism industry. So the linkage between tourism and agriculture is also critical. So all of these things, I think, are things that we need to focus attention on. And of course, for manufacturing of agro-processed items, we can create or produce the raw material for agro-processing in the Caribbean. So these are some ideas in terms of some of the things that we ought to be doing, but maybe not doing it as fast enough, not doing it as profoundly as we should be doing. So again, it calls for more thinking, it calls for more action though, because there's been a lot of talk, but I don't think we're moving fast enough. But also our people must change their mindset too about how we see rural life and agriculture.
Yes, thank you. But I definitely can resonate with that. I'm not born there, but my family is from there, and definitely I see the difference as opposed to back in the day when my grandfather had estate and workers. He had workers that worked his estates. The generation, which is the grandchildren, which are us, I don't see anybody interested in that anymore. So what happens to all of that work and opportunities and tourism within Dominica is like, where is all that gone? The young people aren't interested in working the land anymore. But that was big back in the 80s with transferring goods and transferring to different countries and all. That was a big part of Dominica, from what I saw within that family.
Yes.
So they said, I don't know how will they ever change.
The dynamics have changed. The dynamics have changed, grossly since the 1980s. We've lost, as I said, it used to be bananas. Today, we do not have that market in Europe like we had 40 years ago. So we have to look at new crops, new markets.
Yes.
Thank you. Look at new ways of doing agriculture. It cannot be the back-breaking thing, if cutlass and pickaxe like before. We have to find new ways to go into agriculture.
Thank you. Cuisine. How about the quiz? Some people do with cuisine as tourism, like some countries.
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
So part of the tourism that we're promoting in the Caribbean and Dominica, it is about the food that we eat in the Caribbean, because we have some of the best cuisine in the Caribbean. The
Delicious.
Creole cuisine, the Asian cuisine, and other types of cuisine throughout the region. So food is a big thing. People come to this part of the world for food,
Yes.
and so in Dominica, yes, it is an area we think that is important for us to develop and to promote much more than we have been doing. Our Creole cuisine, I think, is among the tastiest foods that you can have anywhere in the Caribbean. No question about that.
Delicious, and it's healthy.
That's right.
And the cocoa with the cocoa, yes, everything is fresh.
Yeah.
The grapefruit juice, you get it straight from the tree, and you my grandmother, she did a lot of that. The grapefruit juice, and you make it's just naturally healthy. The cocoa, everything, cocoa tea from the actual cocoa. So, so tell me though, I know we're almost time to be finished. Any golden nuggets you have, since you have amassed this much knowledge along with experience throughout your career? What advice would you give to young women and men? You don't even have to be young, but any age, who are aspire to follow in your footsteps or have this goal or interests?
Well, I think like the old cliche, always believe in yourself, always think that you can achieve. It's never impossible. Don't think of your background, your circumstance as a setback. Um, Use that to propel you to higher heights. But of course, you have to have the discipline. You have to have, the ability to realize that things that are important to you. So you have to make some choices, some important choices in life very early on in life. So
Yes.
focus, stay focused, remain focused. But as I say, education, knowledge, reading. So I
Yes.
don't know it's quick. Everything is quick. So
Yes.
we do spend a lot of
Microwavable.
time.
Microwave
Yeah,
world. Yeah.
but nothing can beat spending time to get new knowledge. First for knowledge, first for information. That is important.
Yes.
For me,
Yes.
a lot of what I have achieved is because I spend a lot of time reading, observing, interacting with other people who have the knowledge. I think that is so important.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
What is new on the horizon? Of course, you mentioned about the film lab. Is there anything else that you wish to share? Any projects or programs besides that?
Oh, well, a couple of things. One is I'm going to be very active in my community, my own hometown, my own home village. That is the village of Maho, the way I'm from. So
Okay.
we actually working on a cultural center, an art and cultural center for the community. We're going to be promoting more music. That is our own music. We're trying to get young people more engaged in the music industry, in the music business. So that's going to be a key part. But we're also going to be looking at theater and dance and visual arts and so on. So that is a big project for me, working on building
Thank you.
a strong cultural presence and infrastructure in the community. That's one. Two,
Okay.
yeah, two is we are setting up a local NGO, crazy, yeah? Local NGO to look at charitable causes. I think it goes back to our earlier days when, as teenagers, we were involved in a lot of civic organization. A lot of that disappeared during the decade of the 80s and 90s. We're trying to bring that back. So we have just registered, or we're about to register a community-based NGO to focus on community-based causes, so education, empowering the next generation of young people in area of education, in health, the health sector, post-disaster recovery efforts, because we are vulnerable, and we, at any given time, we can be affected by hurricane. In supporting the elderly and people more vulnerable in the community. So that is the second thing. And also, I'm involved in the Alwyn Bully Foundation. That's a foundation that is dedicated to keeping the memory of Alwyn Bully and alive, and his legacy, to build on his legacy. So this foundation, we are involved in a number of activities. So one, we are doing things like training. We had a carnival of costume building workshop last year, where we worked with designers, not young designers, but designers of traditional masquerade costumes in Dominica. So we want to build on that. It was a 10-day camp. We also going to be doing a national program in theater arts for young people. We're going to roll that out probably either later this year or early next year. And we are, for his 75th birthday, which would have been on November the 23rd, we are doing what we call a Legendary Echoes. It is a sort of a musical. We are doing songs written by Alwyn Bully, performed by Dominican singers. One big night of that happening. So you're going to be hearing a lot of the work of Alwyn Bully Foundation going forward.
Yes.
And then lastly, professionally, I'm, as you know, I am an independent consultant, so I'm involved in some work-related things, that pays the bills. So we are going to be doing some measurements. I am part of a team with people from the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus. We are looking at measuring festivals in the Caribbean. So we have a couple assignments lined up in the coming months. So one is going to be a carnival, and one is going to be a music festival, where we're going to be looking at the economic impact of those festivals on the national economies. And then the other thing is my work with the OAS, the Organization of American States. What I've been doing is designing programs to work with creatives. So we had digital marketing. We're now doing film, and the next one will be indigenous branding for the Caribbean. So these are among some of the things that I intend to do.
Yes, you have a lot on your plate, and it's very exciting and very informative. So I look forward to seeing these things all come to fruition. Of course, you have done a lot, so definitely I know it will occur. Everything will plan out. But I'm thinking in my head, where would you all have your special location in Maho? I haven't been to Maho in a long time, but that's where I usually stay when I was in Dominica. The family is in Maho and in the country.
Yeah, so there's a building. There's a building that we have identified, and we're getting the support of the government of Dominica to turn it into a cultural and art center.
Okay.
So you'll be hearing about that.
I'm just wondering. I'm just thinking in my head where this building is. We're
hoping to have the inauguration of that at some point early in 2025. Yes.
Yeah. I just think of great because it's changing. They have to bridge up the road. I'm not certain where this is going to be, but I look forward to.
Actually, I should also tell you that we have a foundation established to do that. And the foundation, one of these upcoming activities, we have designed a program for junior calypsonians. So we are going to be teaching, before we go to a competition, we're going to be teaching young people about the calypso art form, preparing them for the world of calypso. So it's a 2 months of education and training on the calypso art form. And then we select 12 of the top young calypsonians for a junior monarch competition in our area, in our community, for 2025, Carnival 2025 in February.
Okay.
So these are some of the things that we'll be doing.
You. Yes. I think we have exceeded the 35 minutes to maybe 40 minutes.
Yes.
So I just thank you so much for coming on the show. Is there anything particular you may want to add in before we close?
No, I just want to say that it was a great, evening of conversation, and I think these conversations are really important for really strengthening the Caribbean. What Dr. Ralph Gonzalez said, the Caribbean civilization, because it's important for us to know more about what has happened, what has been happening, and how we can get ourselves to a better place in the Caribbean. So conversations like these are very, very important. So thanks for having me, and I'm sure that you'll be having other Caribbean leaders to discuss issues of relevance to the Caribbean. So yes. Continue the good work.
Yes, thank you. You're
on your team.
People. Yes, we're all Caribbean people, and we have to, elevate and promote the Caribbean. And of course, I'm always going to promote the Commonwealth of Dominica.
That's right. And we're in the independence season. Don't forget. We just roll out the independence program. We had a big celebration on Saturday night. And so Dominica's independence celebration runs until November the 4th.
Yes.
Of course, the high point being the World Creole Music Festival, 25th, 26th, and 27th of October.
Okay.
3 nights of pulsating rhythms.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. And Mr. Kearney, he will be back next week. So, that's it for tonight. Thank you so much, and you have a great night. Thank you, listeners, as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.